Hello, dear students. We are doing Chapter 10 Earth's Internal Composition and Landforms. Now, we studied about the composition of the Earth, the interior, the structure, and we also studied about the types of rocks based on its process, the formation of rocks. And then we studied about the importance of rocks and minerals. Now, we will be starting with the formation of landforms, the land that we see, how they are formed, how changes occur in these landforms. We all know that we have mountains, plateaus, plains, and different kinds of things, but how they are formed, that we will study. The lithosphere is broken into a number of plates known as lithospheric plates. Now, lithosphere, the earth, not only the earth, the land that we see, but even the land below the surface of the earth, below the surface of the sea, the oceans, even that land is a part of lithosphere. And below that we know that there is mantle. So the upper layer of mantle, the land and the upper layer of mantle, the crust and the upper layer of mantle, they are the part of lithosphere. So this lithosphere is broken into a number of plates known as lithospheric plates. You will be surprised to know that these plates move in different directions, that is, few millimeters in a year. They are constantly moving, but when such big plates, such big parts of earth, they are moving few millimeters, we cannot observe them, but over the year we can see its difference. And these plates move because of the molten magma inside the earth. Because of that heat and pressure, these plates are also in constant movement. The molten magma inside the earth moves in a circular manner. The movement of these plates causes changes on the surface of the earth. Now, what happens in the inside the earth affects the outside as well. So, because of that, there are changes on the surface of the earth. The movements of the earth are divided on the basis of forces which cause them. Now, we know that on the earth's surface many things change. Now, depending on which force changed them, we can divide them into endogenic and exogenic. The changes which happened, or the movements which are generated in the interior of the earth, are called as endogenic forces, like volcano, earthquake. They happen due to the forces inside the earth. They are endogenic forces, and the forces that work on the surface of the earth are called as exogenic forces. Now, the changes which happen because of water, because of wind, they happen on the outside of the earth. All these changes are, but the forces are also acting outside the earth. The forces generated, the movements generated inside, generated interior of the earth are endogenic, and the forces on the which work on the surface of the earth, which are outside the earth, they are exogenic forces. Endogenic forces sometimes produce sudden movements and sometimes produce slow movement. Sudden movements like earthquakes and volcanoes cause changes on the surface of the earth. A volcano is a vent opening in the earth's crust through which molten material erupts suddenly. We have already studied about volcano and earthquake, so we know that these things happen because of the movement of the earth, and they have sudden impact. Similarly, when the lithospheric plates move, the surface of the earth vibrates. Now these plates, they are moving, hence the surface of the earth, the crust, even that vibrates, and this vibration can travel all around its center. When we are talking about the vibration of the earth, I hope you guys get the idea that we are talking about earthquake, where the earth is vibrating. The place in the crust from where the vibration starts is called focus. This focus is inside the earth. So that place from which this vibration started, that is called the focus, and it travels in the form of wave outside the center of the origin. Now, the point, the hypocenter from which the vibration started, that is called focus. Then these waves, these vibrations are traveling from the center of the earth to the surface of the earth, and that surface of the earth which is closest to the center is called the epicenter. That is the region of the land which we already know, the land which can be seen, that is called the epicenter. Greatest damage is usually caused closest to the epicenter, and as the distance from the epicenter increases, the magnitude of the earthquake gradually decreases. Although earthquake cannot be predicted, the impact can be minimized if we are prepared beforehand. Nowadays, if you know, like many construction sites, they take certain precautions, or they, scientists are also coming up with things which can protect us, which are earthquake proof. Local people use some common methods to predict possibility of earthquake, like study of behavior of animals. People say that animals can know these changes are about to happen, so they start their behavior changes. Rapid movements of fish in pond, coming out of reptiles on the surface of the earth, etc. Now let me show you one image of this earth, the earthquake. Here you can see this is the point or the hypocenter from which the earthquake started. From here these waves are traveling, and this is the closest point on the surface of the earth which is near to the focus, which is near to the hypocenter. This is called the epicenter of earthquake, and this is called the focus of the earthquake. Let's start about major landforms. The landscape is continuously worn away by two processes, weathering and erosion. Weathering means when the rocks, they break down because of any effect. It can be due to wind, it can be due to water. When these rocks break down, that is called weathering. And erosion, when they are carried away from one place to another, that is erosion. And after that, we have deposition, when they settle down somewhere. Weathering is the breaking up of the rocks on the Earth's surface. Weathering occurs on the surface due to agents like water, wind, and ice. Due to these factors, the rocks break down. The weathered material is carried away or transported by water, wind, etc., and eventually deposited. This process of weathering and deposition create different landforms on the surface of the earth. Let's see this image. Here you can see that there is a rock. Weathering, like there is a piece of rock. Just a minute, guys. You can see that this is a piece of rock which has been broken down, because of water or because of wind or because of anything. We know that rocks, as time passes, even the rocks break. The hardest of the rocks, even they break. So weathering is the breaking, and the erosion. We all know erosions with wind, with water, with gravity. These things, these sediments, they are carried and they are eroded. Then when they settle down, it is called deposition. So because of this process, many landforms are created. In these processes, we will study about how because of water, like because of river, because of sea, or because of wind, how these things have started. So in major landforms, we studied like because of weathering, erosion, and deposition. In that process, let's study the work of a river. The running water in the river erodes the landscape. However strong the landscape may be, but when the water is not stagnant, when it is running with its force, it erodes the landscape. Whatever it is, it carries with it. When the river straightly tumbles at steep angles, steep means direct angle, like it's not going straight, but it is like perpendicular like 90-degree or even steeper than that. When it falls straight over very hard rocks or down a valley, it forms a landform. It forms a waterfall. So when here there is an image of waterfall, when the river it is falling straight and it is falling on hard rocks or down a valley. Valley is the region between two mountains. So when it falls there, it forms a waterfall. As the river enters the plains, it flows there at twist and turn, forming large bend known as meanders. So meanders are basically the turns, the curves of the rivers. These are the meanders. Here, if you can see, this turn which is going here, again there is the turn that bends. Those are called meanders. So when the river enters the plains, it is carrying certain sediments with it, and it turns and forms bends. If you have seen the map of a river or the path of river, it is never a straight line. It is always with turns or curves. So those are the meanders, and due to continuous erosion and deposition along the sides of the meander, the ends of the meander loop come closer and almost assume the shape of a horseshoe or circle. Now these rivers are carrying sediments with them. Now when they take a turn, certain sediments are left behind. Again, they move ahead. Again, sediments are left behind. Again, it happens. Now, as more and more those turns happen, we can see here like this deposition increased, here this deposition increased, here also this deposition increased. So gradually what will happen, this sediments which are deposited here will increase, and this region, these curves, these meanders of the river will come closer, and basically after some time this part will be left behind. The river will start flowing straight because whichever path comes closer, these two meanders they came closer, and here the deposition increased. Hence, that horseshoe shape is come, or it is also known as oxbow. Assumes the shape of a horseshoe or a circle. In this condition, when the river gets flooded due to deposition, land between the meander loops gets cut off by the river flow, and river leaves its long path and takes the straight path. So instead of turning from here, then it will start flowing straight. The water remains in the abundant cylindrical part of the river called the Oxbow Lake. Let's see here. This was the river. It was turning like this, but then it started moving straight. But here also the water is still there, like it will remain. Hence, it will be called an oxbow lake. Sometimes the river seems to flow out of its bank. Now, banks are the fixed path of the river. So sometimes they flow outside that bank. When does it happen? When there is heavy rainfall, or when the river is just flooding, as this leads to the flooding of the neighboring areas. The region which are situated near the river bank, they will get flooded. As it floods, it deposits layers of the alluvium and other other materials. So that plain region which was near the river, it gets flooded, and along with river, this things also will come, the layers of aluminium and other materials. Not only water, but even this is carried there. Landforms formed due to this deposition is called flood plain. So the region which was created as the flood happened, it will be called a floodplain. When a large amount of silt soil deposits on both sides of the river, the raised banks are called levees as the river approaches the sea. So, when the river is flowing and on the sides of the river, some soil or the silt has been deposited, and hence it will rise up. These raised banks are called levees. As the river approaches the sea, the speed of the flowing water decreases and the river begins to break up into a number of streams called distributaries. Distributaries are the small region, small rivers. We can say that they are baby rivers, which are part of the main river. They don't just rush in directly, but the small parts happen. So these are called the distributaries. The river becomes so slow that it begins to deposit silt, sand, soil, and other material. Between these distributaries, you will find the soil which gets deposited because the river is flowing slowly. It cannot just carry all these materials with them. Each distributary forms its own mouth. Mouth is the region where it meets the sea. The collection of sediments forms all the mouths from a delta. The collection of sediment from all the mouths form a delta. So delta is the region of land, not actually land, but we can say it is the region of the soil which has been created near the mouth of the river, where the river is merging the sea or the bigger water body. So that region is called delta, which is formed by the sediments. Next is work of sea waves. The erosion and deposition of the sea waves give rise to coastal landforms. Sea waves also carry salts with them. So when they erode and due to the tides and ebbs, they take and they deposit. They form coastal landforms. Sea waves continuously strike against the rocks. When the sea waves are strong, when we have been to beaches, we see that they strike to against the rocks. As a result, cracks develop. Even the rocks start developing cracks. Over the time, they become larger and wider, which is called sea cave. Like the rocks, they are so strong, they are large in number, but they have been struck so many times by the sea waves that hollow will come in that rock, and they will look like cave. As these cavities become larger, only the roof of the caves remains, thus forming sea arches. And with this cavity, only the roof will be there, so they will be called sea arches. Continuous erosion breaks the roof and only walls are left. Even the roof will be broken down and only the walls, the sides can be seen. These walls are like these wall-like features are called stacks. The steep, rocky coast rising almost vertically above seawater is called sea cliff. The sea waves deposit sediments along the shores, forming beaches. Now, what are beaches? We already know, but let me show you the in the next part. I will show you these cavities which they form the sea cave, the sea arches, and the stacks. Right now I have not kept the images ready, so we will do that in the next part. First I'll show you these pictures and then we will move ahead with the works of glaciers and work of wind. After that only exercises will be remaining, and with that the chapter will get over. If you guys have any doubts, just let me know. Otherwise, nothing else. Enjoy your day. Bye.